Hello, everyone. Kathryn, it was amazing. It was beautiful. Hi again. Hello, everyone. My name is Megan Moyer, and I'm currently the Vice President of CWA. And I'm so honored to be here today virtually with Professor Kathryn Anthony. First of all, I'm just, it was so amazing. I'm clapping here up on my own in my room, but it was beautiful presentation. And so soon we're going to start talking about Kathryn's journey. She's going to talk to us more in person. She's here, but before that, I believe there is something you want to show us, right?
Absolutely. So if this were the traditional presentation, I assume somebody would be putting this on me right now, but I'm wearing the actual award, which you can see in one of the photos here. And so it says, Kathryn H. Anthony, PhD, Chicago Women in Architecture, Lifetime Achievement Award 2020. So I thank you so much. It's a wonderful souvenir that I will cherish for my entire lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. It's beautiful and it looks so good on you. So congratulations again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely. We want to talk about, I know it was a beautiful presentation and you talked about so many of your experiences and your journey in academia, in your professional life, but maybe we want to hear more from you, just expand on some of it. So let's start with your involvement with CWA. I know you had that diagram and you explained, but how you have been influenced by CWA and how you have impacted CWA and its mission and sustaining.
Absolutely. So I think we have a slide to pull for that has a graphic that we prepared that has a timeline. So if we could have that shown while I'm speaking, that would be helpful. Coming up. There we go.
This one.
Okay, yeah. And I guess people can make it bigger if they want to, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, let me just say, first of all, I am totally floored, honored, elated to be receiving this award today. And I thank everybody for coming. I thank all the attendees coming from far and wide. I put a note in the chat to ask you where you were today, and I will be very interested to read it all. I know we have a lot of people from Chicagoland, as we would expect, and we have some people from East Coast. We have some people from West Coast, quite a bit. I've got a lot of family watching in from the West Coast, from various places. And as far as I know, we have a few people even from overseas. So I know one from Spain and one from Cyprus. So, and there may be others as well. So thank you so much, everybody, for coming from far and wide. I'd also like to thank the sponsors too of today's event and helping make this possible in so many ways. I know a lot of work went on, and Megan, I would like to thank you as well. Especially, you really helped make it work. There was so much to do.
Absolutely, it was a joy.
It was, and it was such a pleasure for me. I'd also like to thank my current student, Rashita Ranjit, who is watching today virtually. She's at one of your tables, and she helped me very much with the presentation that we just put together as well. So I'm very grateful to her and to all the students that I've had, who you're going to, I should say you'll be meeting all my students shortly, but you're going to be meeting a good number of them in the video tribute, which is another highlight of today for me. So my connection with CWA has been pretty long, and as Carol pointed out in her very nice introduction, and thank you so much, Carol Ross Barney, for that beautiful introduction. I too was elated to get the job as the tenure track professor at the University of Illinois amidst my 60 male colleagues at the time that I started. And I should say they were very nice colleagues, 60 male colleagues. They were very good to me for the most part, just about every single one. So I feel lucky at that. Took me a while to learn everybody's name, but they found who I was pretty quickly because I was the only female in the crowd. So I guess I first found out about CWA maybe in the late 1980s. I'd been there for a while at U of I, but I'm not sure when I actually very first went to a CWA meeting. That I guess I just don't know exactly. But I do know that once I started teaching this course on gender and race and contemporary architecture that I alluded to in the presentation, at that time, I then became more active in CWA. And so as you'll see in this timeline, starting when I first began that course, which was in 1990, just about every single year that I've taught the course, which has been almost every year, part of the course involves a visit to Chicago and meeting with CWA members and their firms. So Carol's firm, for example, hosted us just about every single year and gave us a wonderful presentation of all the work that's going on in their office year and updating every year and more to show. Also, they were very generous in sponsoring a pizza lunch for our students and for me, which was very good. We devoured that lunch. I think it disappeared in record time because we had to get up really early in the morning to leave from Champaign, and so we were ready for lunch. So that was extremely helpful. We visited Carol's office. We visited Pam Hutter's office. We visited Urban Work. We visited a lot of places all over the city, and CWA members were always very gracious to us. We often had sessions with CWA and with the Illinois National Organization of Minority Architects, Architectos, as well. And so I really tried very hard as a result of teaching that class, as a key component of teaching that class, that students would become introduced to CWA. I also often gave students an assignment that they had to write about some of the professional organizations in the field. So that was one of their assignments. A team took CWA and had to present that to the class. I will say also, I will be teaching that same course again, next week already, now that it's Sunday. Yeah. We'll be doing it remotely. So it'll be, maybe I'll wear this for the first day. Good. So they'll pay attention. You'll see the professor with the nice award. So anyway, so we won't be able to do the trip, I'm afraid, this year in our virtual format, but we'll find another way to get CWA involved. So that's one of the main ways I've been connected with the group every single year. And it's been a great opportunity for the students and for me also. And my hope was, and I think it's come true, that by introducing students to CWA as young people in the course, mainly graduate students, but some undergraduates as well, that they would then become aware of the organization and maybe think about joining when they were out of school. And I think a number of them have done that. So part of my mission has been, I would say all along, to cultivate future members for your organization and future leaders of architecture in Chicago. I'll also mention that the retreat in Galena, Illinois, which you'll see in the timeline there, 1992. I do remember exactly when that was, and I cannot believe that that's almost 30 years ago. It's been a long time. But in any case, I did attend that retreat, as I mentioned in the presentation, with my late husband, Barry, who was the only male there. And as I said, he made quite a hit because he was the only boy present. And we also did a beautiful historic inn in Galena. And what did we do there? We heard about people's experiences that they were having in architectural offices in the city. And I listened very attentively, and I was shocked, frankly, at some of what I heard. And a lot of good stories, a lot of great stories, a lot of wonderful things that were happening to people, but also some stories that were not so good. And it really got my antennas up and made me want to find out more. So I would say the seeds for my work on what I began as the glass ceiling in architecture and then went on to become designing for diversity were really planted right there from CWA, from that retreat. And so I'm very grateful for that. So who knows if I would have written that book, Designing for Diversity, had it not been for attending that CWA retreat. Maybe, maybe not, but my guess is not, because it was really, a spark was lit at that event and it really kept me going. So definitely a connection there. As I mentioned, I went to a number of the other retreats. We had a retreat at Starved Rock State Park. It was my first visit there. I'd never been there before, and that was a great opportunity to connect with everybody. There was another retreat back in Springfield, Illinois. We also stayed at a very beautiful historic inn at that time, and that was also a good way to get reconnected with everyone. And then I participated in a number of the events over the years, some of your anniversary celebrations. There'll be a big one coming up, everyone. I guess we should make a plug for, 2024 will be the 50th anniversary of CWA, so none too soon to start thinking about that. We haven't celebrated that yet, but we will be. But anyway, I have attended the various anniversary events and participated as I could. And I also want to make, a big thank you for ADOT, Architects Doing Other Things. So one reason I put the slideshow in at the end of the presentation, first, I thought it'd be nice to have a little music, a little entertainment for you in the virtual world, in this presentation mode that we're in. And second, I just wanted to mention that really and truly, by having been involved in CWA and having been involved in that event of ADOT, it got me going to do more photography and for a public audience. So that was really probably one of the first times my work had been exhibited in a public place. And since then, I've had some other good experiences. So I think CWA is very instrumental in helping people grow and realize their potential in different directions that we might not have had otherwise. So I often like to joke, I was with a friend on the way to the to ADOT in Chicago several years ago now when it was, and we stopped to visit the Art Institute on our way to go to, I guess we were going to hang the exhibits at the time. So we stopped on the way at the Art Institute, and it was kind of a cool day, and I guess we had to check our things into the cloakroom at the time. So we had our works with us, our artwork, and they were in the cloakroom. So I told my friend, I said, guess what? I guess we could say we've had our work in the Art Institute. We displayed in the Art Institute, but it was in the coat room, in the living room. So anyway, then it made it where it's supposed to go. That's not on my CV, but
yeah. Oh, that's funny. I wish we could see the artworks, but I'm sure they were great too.
It was a wonderful, wonderful thing. And everybody, there were, I believe, 51 artists on display. And we all got to invite people for the opening night. So that too was a highlight for me. I had a number of former students who came and joined me up in Chicago for that special event. So, and again, that was hosted at Carol Ross Barney's office. She had a beautiful space for it, and very, very grateful for that. So I'll also say too, just as I look back at the timeline that we prepared, especially for today, knowing about the scholarship has also been extremely helpful for me. I try to publicize that for my students every year, and at least one or two of the students has actually won the scholarship, and it's been a wonderful opportunity for them to help continue their studies. So, and I'm thrilled to hear that there's yet another scholarship available too now that we just learned of from Rula. So anything and everything we can do to support the organization is well worthwhile. The money goes a long way.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Now, I know you went over your impact on the impact that your work, your research has had on the work and life of women, particularly in the design industry and in academia. I'm wondering if it's something that you want to expand on more a little bit now.
Well, I hope that it's had an impact. You never really know what the impact is, I suppose. The impact of the teaching, only thanks to you, Megan, because you asked a great question of our former students. You'll hear from them in just a few minutes in the video tribute. So Megan came up with a good question of how did your work impact the students, and how, if at all, did it impact their career path? So I'll let them answer that on my behalf, on your behalf. Thank you for the excellent question, because I probably wouldn't have thought to ask them exactly that. So they will tell you more. But I would say, just in general, how has my work impacted the life and career of women in general, and design industry and academia? I would say this particular book that I've written, Defined by Design, was one that was written in large part to influence the design industry and to also influence the general public about how important it is to pay attention to detail in design, that certain aspects of the designed environment, be it products, places, or things, influences different kinds of people in different ways. So there's gender, age, and body bias in whatever we design. So something that you design may affect a person who's 5'2", which is 5'2", which is me pushing it. I used to be, I might be a little less than that, but anyway, today. But someone of my height versus somebody who's 6 feet tall could be in a very different situation using something. And so I call attention to those hidden gender, age, and body biases in fashion, product, and building design. And so in that particular book, I was hoping to influence designers and also the general public about ways that they could pay more attention to how to pay attention to these biases and what to do about some of them as well, how they can become active participants in combating some of these biases and knowing about them in the first place. I would say one of the things that I am most proud of on my campus, I know that I've had an impact. I've had 2 leadership roles where I was appointed as a committee member, well, as the chair of the committee, chair of the campus. I was chair of campus committee on historic sites. I was chair of the chancellor's committee on the status of women, and I was also the co-chair of the Provost Gender Equity Council. And in those latter 2 positions that were women gender oriented, we did a lot of work at that time. I had to get roped into being on some of these committees and being in leadership roles because on campuses, all too often we have committees that we spend a whole year talking about something and we write some fancy report and we do a lot of work and then it gets shelved and then the next year people start all over again. And I said in some of these cases, I'm not doing these jobs unless I know we can get something tangible done as a result, a tangible result that we can show and point to and say, we did this, our campus has improved because of that. So one of the things we did when I was the chair of the Chancellor's Committee on the Status of Women, and then again as the Provost Gender Equity Council co-chair, we looked at restrooms across campus and we looked at lactation spaces across campus. And prior to that, I really don't know if people were paying too much attention to those. And I will say that today, now on our campus, the Facilities and Services department on our campus has paid a lot more attention. We have many, many more gender neutral unisex restrooms than we had before. We have lactation spaces which are required by law in many parts of campus. And we tried to be an advocate for gender equity and for new mothers who needed a space to nurse their children and to treat people fairly. So on our own campus, I can say I know that I've had those effects, and we were really trying for that. We also developed a universal design podium, a gender-friendly podium. We had a female chancellor many years ago who was a little bit more vertically challenged even than I am. Her name was Nancy Cantor, and we used to see her speaking beside, in front of a podium, and you'd see her from here up. So she was blocked. She was like, this is all you could see. And not all the time, but enough of the time. And I thought, well, this is bad. Why does somebody's credibility come into question because of what they are speaking behind? So we designed, as part of our committee, with a group of staff members from our committee and students and colleagues from our Facilities and Services office, the wood shop, we developed a gender-friendly podium that with the press of a button can rise and fall according to the height of the speaker. And it goes from, I think it's maybe 4'6" or 4'7", and it goes, or it accommodates a speaker who is that high to one who's well over 6 feet tall. And we use that now at our School of Architecture commencement ceremony when we have it the normal way. And it has been in the Follinger Auditorium. It has been in the Krannert Center for the Performing Arts. It's located in about 9 or 10 different spots on campus. And everybody who uses it really enjoys it because it makes them look good and sound good. And so the intention was to really create a level playing field for whoever was going to be the speaker. And I see all the time people giving talks, and I think we could use something like that in so many other venues as well. We don't have that problem today, do we? We can be seen exactly as we like virtually, but in so many cases, that's an issue. So anyway, those are just a few examples. I'm sure there are more. As a teacher, I try to inspire the best in everyone. I look at all my students and I think, you never know where people are going to end up someday. We could have the next Carol Ross Barney in my class. We could have the next Pam Hutter in my class. We could have the next Jeannie Gang in my class. We could have the next Caesar Pelli in my class. How do I know? But I like to encourage people to think big and to think of the possibilities, and I like to assume that they're all going to be doing really well someday. So I like to see their potential and encourage them to realize that.
That's wonderful. So let's go back a little bit. So you arrived to Champaign from California for the job, and this is your first time in Illinois or in Champaign. So maybe tell us more about the impression that the school had on you, the city, and the gender balance, and how did you start on your journey since then?
Okay. Well, I first arrived on the campus of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. It was in April of 1984. I had never been there before. I'd been to Chicago once or twice, but I had never been to Champaign-Urbana ever. So the plane kept going lower and lower and lower, and I wondered, where is this place? I think I was sitting on the wrong side of the plane, so all I saw was the prairie. I didn't even see the campus, and I thought, what have I gotten myself into? I didn't really know anybody there either, which is interesting. So often when you apply for a job, you have some kind of personal contact. I really didn't. I had one friend who was in the engineering department, and he's still there. He was a friend of mine from grad school, but he's the only person that I really knew in advance. So it was all new to me, and it was all very, very foreign feeling to me. Again, coming from California, where we have mountains and ocean and everything at our doorstep, it was very different. But I will say, once I met the people, and I got to see what an interesting group of people we had at the U of I felt like it was a good place for me to seriously consider going to. So the campus itself, the university, is a very beautiful campus, a lovely campus. Many of you who are here today have been there. Many of you were students there. Some of you, I'm guessing, may never have been there, but if you ever do have a chance to visit, hopefully under more normal circumstances, when you see more students around, it's an absolutely gorgeous campus. So I was kind of sold on the physical environment too. I loved the old architecture building, which was there at the time that 1926 building, and I just fell in love with that building the minute I saw it. And I've had my office there in the same building all that time. So my first encounter was, it was very new. I was a little taken aback that there were hardly any other women there. I mean, that I guess I wasn't totally prepared for. There was one other faculty member who was on the books, but she was actually on leave that year, so she wasn't around and was not there when I began my job there. So again, it was me and 60 colleagues. So it took me a while to learn everybody's name, and there was a nice set of photographs in the basement of the architecture building where all the faculty members were posted. So I had to study them to remember who everybody was. And then my late husband, Barry, said to me, wait a minute, Kathy, half the people seem to be named Jim, the other half are named Bob. So if you try that, you're going to be in luck. And he was right. There were a lot of Jims and Bobs at that time. But anyway, it took a while to get used to. But once I got there, everything was good. And I was very glad that I came to the university. I found it a very welcoming place for the kinds of things that I study and talk about, particularly how spaces and places affect people. And one of the reasons I came for the job was because there were colleagues who were doing some work that was related. My colleagues Jim Anderson and Sue Weideman were very well known in the field of environment behavior at the time, still are, and they were among the people who attracted me the most. Again, I had never met them, but knowing that they'd been there and they had good careers and it was a good place for them, and they helped mentor me actually when I was first there on campus quite a bit. So I was very grateful.
Okay, perfect. So I recently watched you on CBS Sunday Morning in a segment about restrooms during COVID-19 times. And also that I know that you've advocated for that in Capitol Hill previously. So you want to talk about why restrooms are so important to you, especially during this time with the pandemic and lockdowns, how it's affected the lives of people and how you approach that?
Well, I'll just raise a question to the audience. Is there anyone who hasn't been to one yet today? I'm guessing everybody went maybe right before they logged on to this, and you don't have to be physically present, maybe even during the presentation. That's okay. You know, that's what you can do that during a virtual event, I suppose. It's something that we all use. It's a place that we all go. It's the great leveler. So no matter who you are, what your background is, where you're from, your gender, your race, your ethnicity, your age, you're this, you're that, we all use restrooms. So As I mentioned in my presentation, I was a fussy customer from age 3, refusing to go to some of the restrooms in Greece when we were visiting there. And we had the squat toilets, which still takes some getting used to. I think there's fewer of them in Greece now, but they're very common in many other parts of the world. So I realized that restrooms are a very important part of the environment. I happened to be living in San Diego for a brief period during the time my husband was ill and was undergoing some medical treatment. And I was here at the time when a young boy was actually had an absolutely terrible experience using a public restroom in Oceanside, California at a campground. He'd gone to the restroom in the middle of the day and his aunt had taken him there. And he walked into the restroom, was there for a few minutes. A man came in and a man came out during the time he was there in the restroom. And the young boy, whose name was Matthew Checky, never came out. And as it turned out, the fellow who walked in and walked out, what should I say? He killed Matthew, slashed his throat from ear to ear. And I remember when that happened, and I remember how incredibly shocked I was. I said, how could somebody be murdered going to the bathroom? And how, what kind of a society do we live in that can happen? And so that really shook me up. And that was one reason I got involved in it. And the push for unisex restrooms, because had there been a unisex restroom, a freestanding one just entering from the outside, Matthew would be alive and well today, 20 some years later, and we wish that he were. I'll also say that when my late husband, Barry, was in the last week of his life, and he was in a wheelchair only for that last week, and we had to use various restroom facilities, and I didn't know where to go. I didn't want to go in the men's room with him. I couldn't, and I didn't really want him to come in the women's room with me, but that was the only choice we had. So I had to say, coast is clear, open the door, and warn people, and just bring him in there with me. And I thought, wait a minute, what's wrong with this picture? Why do we have just men's and women's, and someone in a wheelchair who needs assistance from someone else needs help? Why don't we have that? And so again, that was our experience for 1 week, but it's other people's experience every single day of their lives. So that prompted me to get interested in it and start writing about it. And I was very happy to be able to pursue this as an interest of mine. I certainly don't have a corner on this subject. Many people have written about it besides me. My colleague Clara Greed in the UK is really one of the international leaders on writing about restrooms, and she has definitely preceded me. But I'm very glad to see that there's more and more attention being paid to the topic now, especially with COVID-19. So again, I'll just ask a question of the audience. If I were there, I would ask show of hands, but how many of you were caught without a place to go during the height of this pandemic, which we are still in? Taking walks, going out for exercise, and not finding a restroom that you can use. No good. So again, we need to think of new and better ways to design restrooms. We need to have a better public infrastructure like we see in countries like Japan and in Germany, where people aren't afraid to go and use public restrooms.Maybe we need attendants in restrooms to make sure that they're clean and then they're safe. We need more, we need better options to accommodate all of us. So I become active in a group called the American Restroom Association. In fact, we're having a meeting with them later today that I'm involved in. I've been involved in that group since 2004. It's an all-volunteer, not-for-profit organization, and a tiny group. It's not really a membership group, just a tiny group. And our goal is to try to advocate for safe, clean, and well-designed restrooms around the United States. So anyway, it's been a long-standing interest of mine, and I know it affects everyone, and that's one reason why I've been so keen on it. And I must say also, I absolutely love it when I hear from people and they say, Kathy, guess what? I saw a great restroom. Here's a picture of it. So as I mentioned in the presentation, one student contacted me during her honeymoon. Wow, she thought of her former professor during her honeymoon. That was the ultimate compliment. And I get, I hear from people far and wide when they see a really interesting restroom and document it and send it to me. So if they think of me when they're in the bathroom, that's fine. I know they're thinking of me. They don't forget their old professor.
Well, that's amazing. I know we're running out of time a little bit, but I really want to go over a couple questions that the audience, Ms. Jackie Davis is asking. How have you seen the role and advancement of women improve in different and specific areas across the profession?
Well, okay, good question. And thank you very much for that question. I would say overall it's changed and it's improved. Things are getting better. They're definitely getting better. If we were to have a retreat today of CWA, maybe we would only hear good stories about things that were happening. So I don't know. I haven't been to one lately. I don't know what we would hear exactly, but I think things are improving. Certainly we're seeing more women students in architecture schools. That's definitely happening. Gradually, we are seeing more women in architectural education as professors. They are getting up the ranks. We are getting up the ranks from assistant to associate to full professors. We just had, just recently, my colleague Lynn Dearborn was promoted to full professor. She is probably the fourth female professor to be promoted to full professor. This just occurred recently. And she is also the brand new president of the ACSA, the Association of Collegiate Schools of Architecture. So during this time period, 84 till now, 84 since I started at U of I, but before that, when I taught at Cal Poly, which was another 3 years before that, since I got my PhD in 1981, almost 40 years now, we've seen a major transition in that more women students, more women professors, more women in leadership roles, more women in the profession as well, no question, and I think more women in leadership roles at the AIA and in AIA chapters and in their own firms. So things are getting better, I would say, overall. But are they perfect? No. Are there still problems out there? Yes, and we still hear about them. So there's still room to go.
Okay. And the next question is, who was your biggest mentor when you were teaching at University of Illinois?
Okay, that's a good question. And thank you again for that question. Who was my biggest mentor? I would have to say it was probably Sue Weideman, who is not with us here today, but Sue was a professor of landscape architecture, and she was at the university for many, many years. And she and I were working together in the Housing Research and Development Program. She was extremely helpful to me in many, many ways. And she volunteered from when I very first came too, that if I was working on a paper to submit for a conference, that she'd be happy to take a look at it. And I will say not just Sue, but Jim Anderson, her colleague, the two of them in particular really took an interest in me. They were on the hiring committee that hired me at the time from Housing Research and Development, as well as from architecture. So there were two committees that hired me at the time. And they were just really, really wonderful colleagues. So they helped me navigate through the university system. We have a very complex hierarchy of publications and rankings of various accomplishments that we have on campus. So if you write a book, it's the number one thing you can do, at least if you're a scholarly type like me. Number one, then a chapter in a book, then referee journal articles, then there's a whole hierarchy, and they informed me of that right away so that I would know what were the most valuable activities on which to spend my time, and that was extremely helpful. So I would say they were very good to me, and were good mentors. Also, Alan Forrester was the director of the architecture school at the time that I was starting there. He was the director for many, many years, and he was a good mentor for me too, I think, as well, in many ways. And all of the directors of the school, I think, were very helpful to me over the years. David Chasko was one of the more recent directors that we've had for a period of 10 years, and he was always very supportive of what I was doing. So I wouldn't say there was just necessarily one, but there was a group. And I also, because there weren't that many women around in the architecture school to be mentors, I had to look elsewhere. So I did find a number of mentors or just friends who guided me from other parts of campus. So I joined, there was a women faculty group that I actually helped founded when I was there, and we had it for several years, and we got together regularly, and I learned from other people what they would do and what was helpful for them. And then we also formed a women in environmental design group. Actually, I helped form that, and we used to meet every, well, you'll hear about that in the tribute briefly too. We used to meet at a Chinese restaurant once a month, and there we were to help each other. So I enjoyed having others help mentor me, and then I felt it was my duty and my responsibility to help mentor others as well. So two-way street.
Yeah. So there are many more questions coming, but I want to be cognizant of everyone's time. So Brian, if you can save these questions, is that a way to do that? And we can move on to the tribute video right now.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm excited to see the video. But these are important questions. I don't want to miss them. So I'm hoping Brian can save them and we can get back to the questions later on, maybe in networking.
Good if we could get back on some of those. I'm anxious to hear them too.
Yeah.
And as I said just briefly before we go to the video of the tribute, I'm so grateful to all of you for asking for that. Because as I said in my presentation, it never would have happened were I not receiving this award. And it really did feel like Christmas morning opening these up. I know a few of you who are here today with us contributed to this video, and I thank you very, very much. Would give you a hug. This is the way to give a hug nowadays. But I'm so appreciative of your taking time out of your busy schedules to add to this tribute. It was just a wonderful gift for me and something that I will have as a souvenir for a lifetime as well. So I hope you all enjoy watching it.
Yeah. Amazing. There it is.